one shot at a time.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is our Saturday feature. You guys will obviously be hearing this on a Monday with our full-length episode, but we just had to pop in, say hello. Our beautiful friend to the north, Dante, was blessed with New Jersey opening golf today, and we're going to give you the raw reactions here Saturday evening. So, dude, you were back on a course today.
Dude, it was a great feeling. It was great to be back. But it was crazy. It's a little weird because the way they did it, the way they ran the system, so everything obviously, in all the other states are most likely online only, prepaid only, so they can eliminate any type of cash transaction or credit card of touching other people's stuff. And it's just basically almost kind of like a sense of wireless in a way.
Yeah,
Just
so you're not
hands.
walking in a clubhouse to check into these tee times.
No.
Right?
So when I pulled up, right, so I made the tee time on the app we use. I call it Chrono Golf. Apparently I misspoke. It's Chrono Golf, but I mean,
if they had any branding awareness whatsoever, it would have been Corona Golf.
I mean, you look at it, you can probably misspeak it easily, but it was wild. So the app itself, I was shocked that it didn't crash on it. So last Wednesday, it opened up for us to basically book our tee times for this weekend.
And was that the day the mayor had made the announcement, or did he make the announcement Tuesday and then it opened up Wednesday?
Was it Monday? It was either Monday or Tuesday. I think it was Tuesday, and then Wednesday I mean, it's crazy how, and props to all the golf courses in New Jersey jumping on. Yeah, I think it was Monday and Tuesday.
I think you're right. I think it was Monday that he made the announcement, and then they had to Wednesday to kind of start accepting tee times.
Mm-hmm. So shout out to all the courses, and especially my course and whatnot. I mean, they grinded from Monday once that was announced, and because obviously word travels fast.
Well, they knew the floodgates were going to open.
Oh, people were calling up and emailing like, "Yo, I need a tee time for this weekend. Let's go." And so they had to figure out, how can we do this all remotely? How are we going to set up the course? How are we going to do the logistics and all the back end stuff in order for every member or public paying member to have the easiest time and easiest accessibility to be able to go play golf during this time, because it is a crazy time.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but most courses to date really only had online sales via tee time purchase wise, through Golf Now or something of that sort. They didn't have something internal. A lot of golf courses, and obviously correct me if I'm wrong, but they didn't have the infrastructure on their own website to say, hey, let's just go set up tee times through our own website. Most courses that I know of, and I hope people can maybe call in or text us and tell us otherwise, but from my experience, courses by themselves don't have it. That's why they had to go to a third party like Chrono Golf.
Yeah, I agree with you. They definitely go. It's all third party, these types of, because especially when if it's not a private course, if it's a semi-private where public's allowed, anybody can basically play. So they have to figure out a system as to what's the easiest way for anybody to book a tee time, because they won't be able to handle the phones if they just did it by that. They would not be able to handle it. They would have no chance. So how can they do it with, making things the easiest for everybody? And because I know, like you were saying about that, even private courses, some of them, they're so old school, it's call up and book a tee time. Or maybe if they share, with the members, they share maybe a Google Sheets or some type of Excel spreadsheet to where, oh, I'm going to go into, and they just see it because it's obviously just members, and then they can see who signs up for a tee time. So at first, they said 9 a.m. Wednesday, it's going to be released for you to access it and allow yourself to book tee times. 9 a.m. I sat at my computer at 8:30 and just watched the clock until 8:59 hit, And once 9 rolled through, I clicked on that and ran right through there and
You're
booked my
like
tee times.
you're like a student at like for student tickets, like season
Yeah.
passes or something like
Or
that to like a
or
football
remember what
game, like or what were
remember
you
when
gonna
we had
say?
at Marywood when we had to book our
The
classes?
classes, yeah.
Oh my God. Everybody's like, you better get on there if you want to get so and so class with
I
so and
would
so
I would
teacher.
never
And
understand how we had such a problem because we were like a Division 3 small school.
mhm,
I was like, if this is the way the D1 schools do it, God bless them. Because
yeah.
we, like you said, you're sitting there, you're hawking the clock, you're waiting, and the minute it turns to 9:00 on the dot, you're hitting refresh and you're ready to roll.
And
So were you able to get in first time around?
yeah, no problem. Crazy thing is, so luckily I can play 5 other courses. The course I belong to, obviously, the reciprocals are all on, it's all under the Ron Jaworski name, Jaworski Golf. I belong to a course called Running Deer Golf Club down in Pittsgrove, New Jersey. So he has other courses throughout the South Jersey area and 2 actually in Pennsylvania. So we actually have the ability to play those courses, which is great. So it's almost like you pay for 1 and get 6, but it's not necessarily the way they it sounds like that, but it's just like a private course. It's no different from a private course where you can get reciprocals at other courses.
Mm-hmm.
So it basically, your greens fee is covered, which is great. So luckily we have other courses. For some reason, I guess the way they had Chrono Golf set up, Chrono forgot to release Running Deer, the main one everybody that want to go to. So when I got on there, I'm sitting there like, oh shoot, I can't book a tee time for Running Deer. What's going on? I was like, oh man, the system crashed. Did it really crash? Like, did we just like flood it? But then I was thinking, I said, Chrono Golf's probably nationwide and maybe even worldwide. So there's no way that our course crashed the entire thing. I said, something's wrong. So I was like, oh, let me check the other courses. So there's another course. It's called Riverwinds Golf and Tennis Club. It's in West Deptford, New Jersey, and it's actually right across. It's on some of the holes are right on the Delaware River, so you can actually see Philly and you can see actual planes coming in for
That's a
landing for the
pretty cool
airport.
experience then.
It's
Yeah.
sick. So we'll have to get you up here and play that, which is because all the other Running Deer. Sorry, the backtrack. Running Deer is semi-private, and that's where all the pretty much majority of the members are. The rest are like 100% public in a way, if you want to categorize it. So like anybody can play, which is great. And I mean, it's a link style track. It's pretty sick. So I checked that because I'm equidistant to Running Deer and Riverwinds. So
Right.
I said, okay. So I texted my buddy. I was like, because everybody had to have their system. Like you had to be in the system. You had to have like whatever you had to know who you were playing with. It wasn't, I couldn't just book a tee time for 4 people and it would be good.
So
You
like
had to book it
pause on
for,
that for a second. I'm interested. So like anyone who wasn't a member at a club, did you hear just kind of like through the grapevine of like what that experience was like, or like what that kind of looked like? Because like obviously you're pretty blessed having Running Deer and this 7 other or 6 other courses, but like someone who maybe only was a member at one place or wasn't even a member at someone and tried to play at like a public course in New Jersey today, what was that like for them?
so actually there's another public course called Indian Spring Country Club. It's probably maybe like 35-40 minutes from my house. Luckily I follow them on Facebook, so they were doing their due diligence and making sure everything was going to be set up perfectly. And once they released it, their teeth, so they abide, so it's 2 sims only every 16 minutes. So I mean, you're only getting eight golfers out per hour.
Yeah.
So if you run a 13-hour fan of golf tee times for 13 hours, you're only getting like 120 some golfers. So, I mean, if you have over 500 members at a course, you better, it sucks. And that's like, we'll get into that aspect a little bit later. But so their tee time sold out. And I mean, this is a straight public course. I'm pretty sure they have members as well that pay kind of like a pass type thing
Mm-hmm.
for unlimited fees. But I saw on their Facebook, 5 minutes, their tee time sold out for this weekend. Luckily, Running Deer opened it up just for members only at the time, which was nice. So appreciate that to allow us to get out there, because this weekend. I mean, the weekend, obviously, you can see the weather
I
on
was
the
gonna
East Coast
say,
is
I think that's
absolutely
right.
gorgeous.
And maybe people can debate us on the other side of things, but I think if you're a course that has members, there are some courses that are strictly public. like municipals and stuff like that. But I think if you are in a spot where you have members, I think it's only right, because these are paying customers that pay month in and month out, or sometimes up front for a yearly cost, that they have the club's back in an essence of
And
saying, I'm dedicated to playing here.
I
And I
agree.
think that's right, that
And,
that some clubs have done that.
and I was appreciative of that. And I mean, they're allowing public coming up. I don't know what they're going to do, because it's not fair for a member who pays hundreds of dollars a month, who missed out on a month, that had to pay that month already.
Yep.
All these members out there that allow public to their course, and then now I'm a paying member who pays X amount of dollars per month to be have the exclusive access to the course and all their what they allow, to then I have to fight for tee times with the public for a public player. I think that's unfair to a paying member. I think members should get a priority. I mean, and I get it. These courses, they are losing revenue like crazy. I mean, think about it. A lot of courses now, they do weddings. They got leagues, after work leagues, that aren't being done. They have, what else do they have? The public play that they continually get outings, like golf outings from other places. I mean, all those things is just, they're not getting any type of revenue coming in.
Well, and you got to
The
think
members
too,
are constantly paying.
you got to think too, they're not getting the revenue for, especially a lot of golf courses, just when you think about it from the like food and beverage side of things too.
That too.
The amount of money they do on food and beverage alone, and they're not allowed to have it open. Golf courses aren't like kind of packaged into that, oh, you can have carry out and stuff like that. Like they aren't in that, like, kind of loophole of food and beverage. So, I was talking to our pro here the other day. We had been lucky enough to, per the podcast, gotten reached out to by a delegate up in the Emmitsburg, Maryland area. And he was kind of going back and forth, with us on the Eastern Shore here, as I am, down in Salisbury, that he was kind of trying to connect North Shore and South Shore, basically, is the way he explained it, and was saying, like, I want to know the hardships that the golf industry is experiencing down in like the Eastern Shore of Maryland, and kind of see if it's, hand in hand with what's going on up in like the Baltimore, DC metro area, and even up towards the Mason-Dixon line. It was interesting to be on that call with the GM of all of our golf operations. I'm in a similar situation you are, that I am a member at one course, but then have about 4 or 5 other courses that I can go play. And in that, not only is Ruart Golf is what owns all those golf courses. Not only are they seeing a heavy hit from, obviously the shutdowns and golf not being played in Maryland, but what they're seeing is, like, obviously Ocean City, Maryland is a ghost town right now, because Maryland is just shut down for the most part. It's like locals only, no beach access, whatever. And right now, in end of April, beginning of May, they are seeing such a downside, because this is prime tourism time. Like, they say over 80% of their rounds played. Now, this is counting members. Over 80% of their rounds played in like end of April, early May, beginning of June, all tourism. So, like, even if we get golf back, they're only at 20% of their revenue to begin with, because we're not going to have that tourism aspect. We're just not. Ocean City's not opening, even if golf does.
Yeah.
Like hotels and everything. So it's just crazy to me to be in on that conversation, because it's like you said, it's like, yeah, we're getting it back, but but you said twosomes and 100 and maybe 180 golfers all day, and that's a stretch. Yeah. That's a stretch. It's just like, so I guess where I want to transition into is, like, what were your thoughts on it playing today as you played in twosomes, or little lenient twosomes, and what was that like? Because it had to be, from at least my perspective, it had to feel dead. Like, it didn't have to feel busy.
It was quiet. It was definitely quiet. So here, rolling up with like the online booking and on that. So we kind of have a one-way giant circle, and the parking lot sits in the front. So when you roll up, you drive, it's a mile down, right? I mean, this place is in the sticks. Like, everybody thinks Jersey, they think New Jersey, they think Jersey Shore, they think all these Guidos, MTV, this and that, and it's like very crowded.
Wait. You're
What?
not a Guido?
No,
Fuck.
no shot. Yeah. So, I'm not even going down that road.
Okay, so you're in the sticks.
Yeah. So 20 minutes from me, it's pretty country. So there's like farms, golf course, like and so you drive down this mile road. There's some houses, really nice houses, and then when you roll up, you just bear right. Well, they had a guy there at a podium, and you had to stop, and they were basically checking, hey, because you got to show up no more 15 minutes before your tee time. You're allowed to basically show up and get out of your car and get ready and get moving. So
there's no range access.
No
range access.
No range access. Everything's closed. No, can't go on the putting green. I mean, they called it a park and play. You show up, you park, you grab your stuff, and you head right to the first tee and you tee off. So everything was done like 15, 16 minutes. So you roll up. I had an 8:15 tee time. So it takes me about 20 minutes to get there. So I left around 7:40, just about. Got down there. It was about just shy of 8, just maybe 5 minutes before 8 o'clock. Rolled up. They had this podium. They knew me, obviously. Like, oh, what's up, Dante? How's it going? What time you got? I said 8:15. Oh, man, you're right on time. Pull in, park, and you can grab your stuff and get out. If I was any earlier, they would have told me I had to wait in my car and sit in my car until exactly 15 minutes before my tee time, until I can actually get out of the car, grab my stuff, and roll up. And they asked that mask to be worn before and after your round.
Okay, so like basically walking onto the first tee, like car to first tee, and then 18 tee to your car, like mask.
Yeah. They say it's highly recommended, but I mean, they're not enforcing it. That's the state. But they ask, because that's gonna be your most human reaction. But every worker, every grounds crew, even the guy at the podium when I rolled up, had masks. And when I pulled up, the GM was there, director of sales was there, director of golf was there, our one guy, Billy, shout out to Billy, who's like the cart barn kid. There was about 4 or 5. They had a few carts because they let carts out. It's one per person. They all had masks on. They all had gloves on. So they were and they were outside. They were outside of the pro shop, and they had this other podium with a computer to basically check it into their system. So they had this nice logistic plan. You roll up, you check in. They say, okay, you're good. Go to the parking lot, grab your stuff, get out. You can start heading to the first tee. Well, it was just us pretty much, because 15 minutes ahead, the other group was already on like.
Well, yeah, I mean, what your typical groupings are 8 minutes, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they're
10 minutes.
In between 8 to 10 minutes.
Yeah, so I mean, you add that extra 5 minutes, and some people will like kind of scoff at that and be like, well, what's 5 minutes? Well, 5 minutes is the difference between you hitting your approach shot, getting to the green, and being gone. So if you think about it, basically what you're saying is the people are on the next tee, if not completely gone off the next tee by the time you're hitting your tee shot. So that's a good distance. And per pace of play, I'm not sure if you maybe snuck up on anyone today, but I do have to ask, no range balls, no putting green. Long time since you've actually been on the course.
I haven't taken
what happened to your first tee shot?
I actually hit a bomb driver. I bombed it, hit it pretty solid. Yeah, I did. Yeah, that's right. I said I was gonna. I was like, first time I get on the first tee, I better hit. I didn't go down the fairway. I'll admit that it was a little draw. So we have on the left side of hole 1. It's probably the entire length of almost the fairway. I would say it's a good almost 200 yards long bunker. It's huge, and I put it just like. If I just need to be a little bit more right, and I would be like flipping like a sandwich into the green.
I'm at least happy you bombed it. You said you were going to, and you held true to your word.
I did. And it wasn't in the woods. It wasn't a lost ball. It wasn't like a slice or anything. I made a great swing because I haven't really been swinging full, and I don't know what kind of contact I'm gonna get. I've been training with like the speed sticks that I had. That's the only full swinger. It's been taking I'm not actually making contact with the ball. The only thing I've been doing is just chipping the ball around.
Right.
Which that didn't help because my touch around the greens and on the greens was awful. But no, yeah, I hit a great drive. Then I sculled it out of the sand, and then it went long, and then I chipped it on, and then I two putted for a bogey. But putting was a little tough because greens are still coming off of aeration, so they're a little slow and a little bumpy. And I've been putting on about a 4-foot roller the past 7 weeks.
So
Just trying to.
little different than some metal.
Dude, I shit you not. I took the same stroke I was taking just behind me, practicing, my putts here, just to make sure that I was having that consistent stroke, just to make sure my rhythm was down and whatnot. I'm telling you, going on the greens, the ball probably maybe went, I don't know, 2 feet.
See, that's the tough part. That's the tough part of Northeast golf, which a lot of the country doesn't understand either, is right now is aerification time. And it's a crucial part to our greens being very nice come midsummer and late fall before they aerate again in like October, you know.
We need to get that healthy get those healthy roots, get the air down there so they're nice and strong, because once that heat comes in, that humidity, like late June and
you need those
August,
deep roots. Yeah.
Woo,
Yeah.
Oh man,
something to maybe kind of touch on. We talked about the courses just being absolutely pure, like they had to be pure. But maintenance doesn't stop. The same time on the clock is the same time on the clock for the maintenance guys and gals out there. And when it's end of April, they're gonna aerate, and thank God for them, because like you said, it's crucial to us having good greens in the summer.
One thing I'll tell you this, it was green. It was green out there. I mean, the fairways were flush. The rough was nice and flush. I mean, granted, we're kind of like a piney area, so there are some bare spots here and there, and you get that, like, you get some junk. But a lot of the spots that are usually bare were actually pretty full.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was pretty lush, and it was green. I mean, and with like the rain we've been getting and with like the sun, I swear, like almost everything bloomed overnight because the trees were green. And the sun was out, not a clouded sky. I'll tell you what, I did not score, and I'll be honest, I shot a 90. It was awful on the scoring aspect, but boy, did I not care about that. I was just happy to be out there.
I'm very worried about what my first round out will be. But I will say I'm very happy that my Barstool Classic partner at least is out on the golf course. It can only go. It can only get better from here. You shoot a 90 in the Barstool Classic, I might be looking for another partner next year.
I might be fire then.
But no, dude, I'm happy for you, man. That is so cool to just kind of be able to get back out. We've been chomping at the bit and seeing our brethren down south, whether it's North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, all of our buddies down there getting out and playing golf. So it's awesome to see it in your own backyard finally open back up.
And I'll tell you the greatest feeling. I was out there and totally forgot we were in a global pandemic. It was the greatest feeling, and honestly, I felt with the sun, the vitamin D, the fresh air, and let's face it, a lot of people are going through high anxiety, high stress, depression. I mean, a lot of that stuff's hitting hard, and it's making these people sick.
I saw a very relatable, very kind of maybe even like, deep meme here the other day. Not even a meme, maybe it was just a post on Facebook, but it had said, it kind of alluded to that, the anxiety, stresses, and actual maybe even, more issues that are coming out of quarantine than being able to just be outside. And it kind of alluded to that, man. It's like when you force people to be inside, when every single other ounce of their day is spent outdoors doing something, it changes people's complete complexion. a complete approach to a day, complete mentality, complete mental state. And I've always said this, and I think we've been huge advocates for this, which is why I love the game so much. It is a mental release from everything, no matter if you're in a crisis or not. If you had a bad day at work, go walk 9.
Oh, it's the
You know, yeah.
greatest feeling in the world.
If you had,
One of the
even
best.
if you had a great day, go
Yeah.
celebrate and play 9. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those, golf is one of those things, man. And I challenge any other sport to get on golf's level. That's what I'm going to say, to get on golf's level, because I don't think there's another sport out there that by the time you tee it up on the first hole, and whether you're playing 9 or 18, that you remember why you were mad, happy, sad, or anything in between when you first teed it up, because it
Oh
makes you
man.
forget about everything between
Yep.
hole 1 and hole 9, or hole 1 and 18.
And I'll be honest, I felt the best just overall health wise, just like, mentally and like, even physically out on the golf course than I have been sitting in my house for the past 7-8 weeks.
Yep.
In this house, dust accumulating, just, no fresh air.
Did your beer get a little dust on it?
Oh man, sneezing all over the place now. But it just felt good. I mean, I was excited, energy. I was up in spirit. That the mental health aspect. It was just the sun,
And
the
now I will
breeze
say,
coming in.
it might just be because we're golf addicts.
Exactly.
Might
Yeah.
be, there's definitely a lot of people that had no qualms about golf being open today. They couldn't have cared less. But we're not in that industry.
Yeah.
We
But
give a shit about golf, and we love golf. So damn
exactly.
right we were pumped.
Yeah, we were pumped. And everybody has their hobby that they want to get back to, and that requires them to leave their house. And
Yeah.
everybody
Yep.
wants to get back out there. And I'm telling you, when I experienced that feeling, it's probably one of the greatest feelings you'll have after this. It's just being able to like, wow, I can actually go out and do this.
So
Like,
are you
this
back out
is
tomorrow?
amazing. Absolutely. I'm out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I'm out as many days as I possibly can.
You're a dog, and I love it.
Yeah. So my feet are going to be barking. My legs are already sore.
Speaking of feet, though, you put those squares to the test today.
I did.
Didn't you?
They were great. Oh my gosh. And I'll tell you what, one thing I'll say is I didn't wear them around the house at all much.
They were
I didn't
fresh
really
out the
try and
box
break
pretty
them.
much.
They were basically fresh out the box, and I walked 18 pretty much with no problem. Only thing is that, new shoes rubbing up against the back. I mean, they got to go through the break-in process. So there's kind of tore up my my heels a little bit, but nothing, little bit of Band-Aids and Neosporin. But hey, I was walking 18 in brand spanking new shoes. But I'll tell you what, man, I just felt so stable. The wider, like kind of like foot, because I have a wider foot, and I usually kind of jam when I find shoes. I usually jam my foot in there, and like my foot's kind of like suffocated and crunched. I did not feel that way with those shoes. I just felt like I felt taller, which is great. I do think they add maybe a half or a full inch extra height onto you because of how thick the sole is. But obviously we spoke to them, and that's,
I was gonna say,
it's all about stability. And I'll tell you
that's what I said when I put them on. There's
Mhm.
only one other shoe I kind of have in, I don't know if you want to call it my arsenal, but the pairs of shoes that I do have, there's only one other shoe that compares to it, and it's I think 2016 Jordan Spieth shoe. And it is just a very, like, the minute you put it on, you go from like 5'7.5" to like 5'9". like it just pumps you up. It sets you a little higher. But I will kind of, back that up with saying I putt better when I have that shoe on. I seem to swing freer. I don't know if it's just that extra inch of just letting my arms hang and being a little freer, but that extra little boost, whether it's just all in your mind to think you're that much higher or whatever it is, I think it actually betters my game. I've never played horribly in any of those shoes that give me that little extra boost.
Yeah. Right. Oh man, it definitely, the stability was probably the biggest features that I noticed, that was very outstanding because I mean some of the other shoes they're a little bit more flimsy and like your foot kind of moves around or the foot rolls off the side of the shoe. So, but no, I did not have that issue. Walking was no problem, and I can't wait to get them out again and definitely break them in. So they were pretty dope.
Well,
Can't complain.
like I said, if Maryland doesn't make any moves here in the next coming week here, you can bet your ass you'll see me in New Jersey by Wednesday or Thursday of this coming week. So, man, happy to at least have golf back in our own realm of things. I know, like I said, Isaiah's had it forever, so he doesn't count. They never shut down. But you got it back in New Jersey, man. I'm pumped for you. What is your expectations for tomorrow going into Sunday? Are you playing the same course? You playing Deer
No,
Run again?
I'm playing Riverwind, so I'm actually I'm hoping for a better score. I mean,
Here's what I'm
that's
hoping for you. I'm hoping for just as sunny skies as we had today on Saturday, because I know down here in Maryland it was gorgeous. And anytime the sun shines on a day of golf, it doesn't matter what the hell you shoot. It's just a nice day to get out in the course.
just to be back. I mean, if I can just eliminate some of the mistakes I went through today, I would say maybe say like a couple of them. I'd be happy just to know like, all right, okay, well that that didn't work yesterday because I got and I'll tell you the adrenaline and the excitement I got quick. So
How
if I can
cool is that though,
eliminate.
man? Like how cool is that to say that like just your first day back on a random round at your home course, probably almost simulated tournament golf because you were just so pumped and like adrenaline fueled to just finally swing a club on a course again.
Dude,
You were sending me half swing, backswing videos because that's all you had up till today.
Yep. And there was now granted I've been going through some speed training a little bit to try and get a little bit faster, but I mean there was times I was hitting clubs where that wasn't necessarily the number I would hit that club.
I
I
mean,
was
so
going
shout
lower.
out to our guy Ethan Smith. Did he inspire you to get those speed sticks?
Yes, he did. And shout out to Isaiah as well, because I reached out. I was like, dude, how can I get faster? And he basically said these. And I said, all right, we're going with it. And I
Now,
got
no
them.
free ads, but what sticks did you pick up?
I think the company is
Super
called
Speed,
Super
yeah?
Speed. Yep. Super Speed Golf. Obviously they've been promoting them a lot for everybody's trying if they want to gain speed. And Isaiah from, why not go to the pros for those trying out there, trying to grind.
It's tried and true. You when you want to understand something better, you go to the guys that do it for a living.
So, I mean, shout out to Ethan. I've seen videos of him showing his training. And then shout out to Isaiah when I reached out to him and he literally sent me a screenshot of the product. He goes, I'd recommend these. And I went ahead and purchased them. And I'll tell you, the clubs definitely feel way faster. Obviously, I would like to see a couple of weeks. I'm still going to go through their protocols and whatnot, but I would like to see in a couple of weeks when the adrenaline starts calming down. It's just like, hey, this is kind of the norm now for golf to see, okay, am I seeing any improvement? And honestly, I thought I did today. A lot of the clubs I was swinging, they just felt like I wasn't swinging it. Felt like I was swinging it fast, but felt like I didn't really have to do much. And then the ball just jumped off the face.
That's awesome. Well, I love to hear that, and pumped that you're back out, and excited to kind of document the next couple days here. If you're at River Winds, that's a hell of a course, and it's just it's fun to see golf back, man. And I'm hoping Maryland is documented as one of the last 3 states that don't have golf instituted in any way, shape, or form. So I just hope we get something back soon. But awesome to see you back, man, and pumped for what's ahead.
Yeah, so absolutely.
Welcome back to the Enjoy the Walk podcast, guys. As you just heard, we rolled into Dante's recount of his, weekend experience with New Jersey finally opening their golf courses. You played again Sunday, dude. How'd it feel to get 2 days of golf in a row?
I am destroyed. My feet are destroyed right now.
So you didn't enjoy the walk today?
Oh, I enjoyed the walk. And I'm telling you, I'm going to continue to enjoy the walk. I mean, I'm not getting in them carts with everybody touching them steering wheels or whatnot, but yeah, it was fun. I played a different course. It's called Riverwinds. It's actually along the Delaware River. So a couple of the holes, you actually see the sky. You literally see Philadelphia, which is pretty sick. But it was a little eerie because because Philly's right next. It's right there, and then you can also see the airport. And what's neat is there's in our normal lives, planes would fly. You would see just planes just flying in left and right. I didn't see a single plane today,
That's
and it was
absurd.
quiet. You can just hear that eeriness of just emptiness of this whole stay-at-home order. But dude, I walked 2 18-hole rounds, and my feet are killing me.
Well, I tell you what,
I
that's
went.
persistence right there, dude. That is
Yeah,
persistence. I
listen,
love it.
I'm playing Monday, and I'm playing Tuesday, and I'm playing Wednesday, and I'm playing Friday, and I'm expecting to walk every single one of those rounds.
Boy, if you weren't in shape before, you're gonna be in shape after this. After the
That's the
quarantine hits.
that's the plan.
I love it. Now you talk about some persistence there. I think our next guest on the show here is just an embodiment of persistence, from just getting into the game and working his butt off to how he got to play Division I golf, and then some of the circumstances that hit him in life, that put him on a little detour, but obviously, as he'll get into, probably made him the man he is today. So really happy to bring Alex Romo onto the show. Alex, thanks for joining us, man. How are things going?
Things are going well. Thank you, Dalton, Dante. Appreciate that intro, guys. Yeah, really, honestly, never been better. There's obviously some crazy stuff going on in the world, but speaking for myself, at least, I'm thriving right now. Things are going well.
Yeah, I think, and it's really cool. Like I said, we'll get into it, but there's been I feel like two different ways to kind of approach the quarantine that we've been, self-imposed with our governments and stuff like that. You take this time to reflect and maybe get better within yourself, and some people have maybe chosen a different route. But it's been cool to see, especially from your end, as we follow along on social media, that you put your head to the grindstone and produce more content, make yourself better, and kind of carve out a path that, when we get out of this, will be better for yourself. So what I want to first touch on, I think, and get into is how you first got into the game of golf.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been a lifelong thing for me. I'm 28 now, and I started playing when I was 5. My dad taught me the game. He had been playing for a few years before I was born, and I was a multi-sport athlete growing up, played everything pretty much: basketball, baseball, soccer, golf, water polo. Actually, that was probably the sport I was most adept to and hyped on. Took it pretty far, and then around age 15, it was kind of starting to destroy my knees, and was looking for something that I'd be able to play in college and hopefully beyond. And so at that age, I quit everything and stuck to golf and golf only. But yeah, it all started just kind of innocently as a young kid, being taught by his dad. But a cool story that I shared a little bit about in one of my more recent Instagram captions, so it's timely that you just brought it up, was a family trip to Scotland, to St. Andrews. That was kind of the solidifying thing that made golf sort of it for me. We came up with this idea as a family when I was about 13 to start saving money to go to Scotland and play at the home of golf, St. Andrews, and maybe a couple other courses. And at the time, I was a 42 handicap, didn't take golf serious at all. And I realized you had to be a 24 to have a tee time there. And so that was sort of the incentive as we began saving as a family for me to also start practicing my butt off and trying to get to that required handicap. And so it took us a couple years to save and a couple years for me to improve. But we took that trip when I was 16 in 2008, and I was a 4 handicap at the time, and it was the most incredible trip ever. It was the same year that the British was at Carnoustie, and this was a summer trip, so it was like right after the grandstands were still up. We did play St. Andrews, and then we played Kingsbarn. So 3 incredible rounds of golf, and just a kind of a mystical trip overall. We had really hyped it up big time as a family, obviously, going into that, and then the trip itself exceeded our expectations, and it just really solidified my love for the game and kind of fascination with it, and that desire to take it to the next level and play in college and beyond.
Boy,
That's just insane.
Pretty cool.
That
Right?
Awesome.
I mean that right there. I mean, the home of golf, St. Andrews. Playing over there, over the pond, across the pond, however you want to say it, is my number one bucket list right now as to golf destinations to play. I
You
really
and me
want to get
both.
out
So
there.
it looks like
Yeah.
there might be a podcast trip here in the future. And, it's crazy because
But whew,
I think there's no one that comes back from St. Andrews or from the home of golf, or even, like you said, Carnoustie, Kings Barnes, any of the golf over there. There's no one that like ends up being a golf fan that doesn't like that. I think if you come back from there and you say, it was okay, golf might just not be for you.
that's
Very fair.
and just the fact that your family wanted to go on a trip over there and you guys all saved money, and in order for you to play, I mean, you're just a teenager, the grind that you had to put just to get better in order to get on the course is just amazing within itself. I mean, hey, if you're on a if you're outside a 24 handicap and you want to get better at golf, plan a trip to go.
What better incentive?
St. Andrews, because you will get better, because that is definitely, and I think all golf addicts is one of their bucket lists to get out there and play. And if you can find a way, you're going to find a way and make sure that it gets done. And I mean, I'm preaching to the choir right now. So
Yeah, I had read some cool books that kind of hyped up the mysticism of golf in Scotland and St. Andrews as well. There's one called Golf in the Kingdom. There's another called A Caddy in St. Andrews or something like that. But it's just, if you know golf at all, you can probably relate to the aura and energy that St. Andrews in Scotland kind of creates, because it is the home of golf, and it's just nothing that really compares to it out here in the States. And so that was definitely a dream come true at a very young age to check that one off the list. And now I'm sitting here thinking, like, what have I been doing the last 10, 12 years? Like, how have I not made that happen again as a better golfer, a more qualified golfer? Like, we need to throw that one back on the books, definitely.
Yeah,
Well,
that one seems to always creep its way back into the plans of any good golfer in some way, shape, or form. Even if you've been there multiple times, it's always that one that's like, yeah, maybe I'll just go back again.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Now, you talked a little bit about that grind, going from a pretty high handicapper to get down to, pretty seasoned player at that point to go over there and play. How did that kind of grind to get better, to play at St. Andrews, kind of, push yourself forward into the aspirations to play in college?
Yeah, it was, a little bit of a taste of what was possible with the sport of golf. I think the first time I ever shot in the 70s was as a freshman in high school. And I think that year I made it to CIF as an individual, even though I played for a relatively small private high school. So our team wasn't super, super competitive, but I started to get a little bit of a taste of what was possible individually. And then fast forward a year or two, and that just kind of, the train kept rolling, and I was even playing a little bit better by the time I went to St. Andrews. And it was just, at that point, age 13, 14, it was getting pretty deeply ingrained that I was hyper obsessed with sports. It ran in my family, athletic dad, and was an only child, so fortunate to have, extremely supportive parents, and athletic dad that was always there if I said I wanted to play X, Y, or Z sport. And so by that age, 15, 16, when the trip actually happened, I was pretty established in athletics and knew I wanted to play in college, and had just kind of been looking for what made the most sense to try to build a long-term career out of. And I think golf is just one of those things you can play for longer than other sports and not have as high of a risk of injury or anything like that. So it just kind of made sense. I was getting better at it. I was enjoying it more. And it seemed like it was going to have the most long-term potential, which at age 15, 16 was kind of what I was looking for. So
That's really neat. And I think the one thing you touched on there, which is like pretty cool from my perspective too, I'm also an only child. And to have those parents that kind of, they still push you to try everything is so crucial. And I think maybe sometimes, and maybe it's just our perspective, hindsight's 2020, but it's like looking on kids today, it's like I feel like parents push their kids into something full time so soon these days, because everything's like travel, whether it's travel baseball or the what is the basketball, the
AAU.
AAU, yeah. Whether you're going AAU and you got to travel all over the place for AAU basketball or whatever it is, I feel like so many teams are getting to travel and like such high capacity that like these kids aren't having a choice to play everything. It's like you got to play one or the other. And I think it's so cool to look back on, maybe not even like that long ago, but like, you know, the mid 20 somethings now that did play everything. It's like I think that's what's really key to a kid really thriving, is just being able to taste a little bit of every sport there is.
It's very true. Yeah. And I mean, I may have gone further quicker in the sport if I was a little bit more like some of the kids that we see get sort of forced into a sport by maybe parents that are wanting them to become something. I definitely, especially in golf, there's a lot of child prodigies that most of them didn't wind up panning out. And it's not necessarily any fault of their own, but it's pretty tough when you're 11, 12 to be like a serious competitive athlete in any sport. And there's a ton of golfers. There's a ton of little kids that are like high level competitors at that age, maybe not necessarily 100% because they wanted to be, but their parents saw something in them. And my parents, I think I'm lucky for it. They were not like that at all. I had full reign to do whatever I wanted. I think when I was between the ages of 10 and 12, I actually didn't really play any golf at all. I was more into skateboarding, scootering, couldn't focus hard enough to go play golf with my dad. And then I kind of came back to it on my own. My dad never really expressed one way or another if that bothered him or not. But I think me coming back to it on my own naturally is what's made it more of a lifelong, affliction with the game. And a lot of the friends that I had that were just killing it in those young teenage years did wind up kind of burning out. So I wasn't extremely polished by 16, 17, 18 and winning AJGAs or anything like that, which is definitely how you get further ahead in the college recruiting process and then the kind of planning for pro golf process. But I always have enjoyed the game and always have made my own choices with how much I did or didn't pursue it, which is a nice feeling.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And, you know, touching on that too, like how much you did pursue it. Let's talk about how you kind of made a decision to go walk on at Cal Poly. That's a decision that I think is, you know, kind of tough for any sport, let alone golf. Golf teams are so small. It's tough to make that roster, especially when, you know, Division I universities are usually handing out a majority of, you know, scholarships for those spots. What was that process like? You know, you're leaving high school, you're going to committed to Cal Poly. You know, what is your decision-making process that you wanted to walk on there as opposed to other places where you were maybe guaranteed to play? And how did that kind of go down?
Yeah, good question. It's I was not a D1 prospect. I didn't have scholarship offers from any D1 programs. And to be quite frank, I actually didn't even put any D2 or D3 programs on my application list. I applied to, I think, 13 D1 programs, all in Cali except for SMU out in Texas, because I had a cousin who was a quarterback out there a couple years prior to me. So I kind of wanted to go be out there and hang with him and try the Texas world. But
hey, not a bad you know, move outside the California ranks. That's pretty esteemed golf program out there as well.
no, yeah, it was a little bit above where I was at the time. But Cal Poly was one of the only places that had what seemed like a fairly legitimate walk-on tryout process. Not all D1 programs really even offer that, and some of the ones that do, the coaches pretty much just said, yeah, I mean, in my 10 years of coaching, we've only ever seen one kid walk on, and just some pretty stern stances on that from most of the coaches. But the Cal Poly coach said, yeah, every September right before school starts, we have a 6-round, 4-day tryout process with successive cuts after every single round. We usually have a pool of 30 guys, and that will be including our past season's roster and this season's recruits. And they're not necessarily on the chopping block, but we still make them play just for good measure. But really, it's an opportunity for maybe those 15 or 20 of you guys that don't have any security to show me what you got, wow me, throw up some numbers in the 60s back to back to back to back, and we'll talk. And he did on average pick maybe 1 to 2 people per season to add that way. And it was a grind. It was a wake-up call. I was definitely not good enough. Part of it was mental. I think I really psyched myself out and kind of felt like these players were better than me. I felt a little intimidated. I had never really won any junior tournaments. I had never even been in an AJGA, never qualified for any of those. So really pretty low track record, with the exception of like within high school golf. I had done some good things in CIF and stuff like that. But in terms of like national rankings and stuff, I was a relative nobody. And yeah, I had a hard time. Freshman year, didn't even come close. Probably got cut after the first 2 or 3 rounds. Continued practicing all year, separate from the team at a different little local golf course, and came home and played amateur tournaments all summer, all the city championships. I stayed really fired up on the sport. And then sophomore year came back, much improved, got a lot closer. I wound up being the last guy cut. So I made it pretty far. I got to play that very last day of tryouts. Last guy cut, way more inspired this year than the year before, that this was a real possible thing and it was worth continuing to pursue. Same story, another year of practice, another summer of city championship golf, and my dad caddying for me and everything, and just keeping the dream alive. Junior year, again, made it to the last day of tryouts, and actually this time kind of sort of got added to the practice roster, which just meant that I could practice at the same course as the team, but not during their practice hours. And it was just sort of like your backup guy in case something catastrophic happens and we need more guys. But we had a pretty big team already of like 12 or 13. And so, yeah, kind of going through my junior year, definitely starting to get a little flustered, feeling like, man, it's just not working out. And it was a little tough because I had sacrificed a lot at that point of normal college stuff, all of the opportunities to study abroad, take internships, kind of start thinking more about like career-oriented things within the business world. I was just completely shining on all that stuff, hanging on to this belief that I could make the team. And it was kind of getting to that critical point where it's like, I don't know if you're being delusional or being a really resilient, persistent, kid that's going to eventually crack the code.
Mm-hmm.
And halfway through junior year, I did get a phone call from the coach and get called up to the more official roster. And I was playing pretty well at the time. So within 2 weeks, I got to play as an individual at my first tournament. And solidified my spot from there, which was amazing. I definitely remember calling my dad and crying when I got the email from the coach, because it was more than just like, I need to improve at golf and this is something I want. It was very like psychological between the coach and I know it's kind of a weird word to throw out, but it was I don't know that I was necessarily ever in his favor. And I know let me preface it by saying this: being a college golf coach, I think, is a very challenging job. It's an individual sport, but you're putting guys together on a team, and the nature of it is very different than a basketball team or a football team or any other team sport that's actually designed to be a team sport. Golf is just a bunch of individuals, but for collegiate athletics, you got to throw them together on a team and find a way to compete. And Cal Poly was strapped for scholarships. We didn't really have much to throw out, and he was doing the best that he could, and he was coaching the women's team at the same time. But I just never I always felt like I was a better player than he ever gave me credit for, and I deserved a little bit more of a look. And it just was this huge emotional thing. When I cracked the code, it was like, oh man, let's go. And my dad had been, both parents supported me the whole way, and it was just this huge, awesome family moment. Definitely the highlight of my life at that point in time. Definitely.
I mean, that's awesome. You talked there, like you said, about your dad caddying for you kind of over the summers too. And what was that like? The conversations between you and your dad during that time, when you see a lot of guys out there, they have buddies caddy for them over the summer, or it's just kind of, ho hum. Like, what was that conversation like between you and your dad that like, all right, hey, let's grind over this. Let's get better. And how did you guys approach that in between school years?
Yeah, it was intense. And even during the school year, I came home a lot for different tournaments. I was not a normal kid until somewhere around maybe 21, 22. I really kind of ignored most of the normal things and the parties and the girlfriends and all that type of stuff, because I was just hyper focused on this, these things I wanted to achieve within the golf world and the belief that I could do it. And I think it was because when I was at home playing, I was a different guy locally, in Ventura County, where I'm from, and where I grew up playing, and where I had a good reputation. A lot of people knew me. I played all the tournaments, moderate level of success. I was a different guy here than when I got in the car and drove 3 hours away to college, and I felt just sort of outclassed by these guys who were already on the squad, already putting up good numbers, had done, different things in college golf and AJGAs, and I just could not bring that same guy out in the tryouts when I needed to. Granted, it's a high pressure scenario because it's just a couple rounds of golf determining the next year of golf for you. But our conversations over the summer, kind of were just all about self-belief and knowing that if coach could see the way I was playing when I was at home, a little more in my comfort zone, in my element, and letting my real game shine as opposed to kind of getting in my own way mentally, then I had what it took, and I could do the same thing that all the other guys were doing. But it was really more about me getting over the intimidation factor and the sort of challenge of wanting to be friends with the guys and wanting to be friends with my coach, but at the same time, those being the direct people preventing me from sort of achieving what I wanted to achieve. And to make it worse, they were my roommates my junior year. I had actually moved in with the golf team, and so it was after I had not made it the beginning of that year, I was saying goodbye and good luck to my roommates every couple of weeks as they were taking off to play the tournaments, and I was still kind of like twiddling my thumbs trying to figure out how I was going to crack the code and get on the team. So my dad and I, those summers were huge. I pretty much always came home and played better than I did in the college years of practice, and it gave me a lot of confidence. And then we would try to come up with our best strategy to help me hold on to that while going into the new environment by myself without my dad as a caddy and without the support system and comfort I was kind of relying on, and just stand on my own too. And it just took some time.
It's incredible, man. The mental fortitude it takes to play good tournament golf. And, you spoke about, you found your comfort zone in the locals, in the county events and in the state events that, in your area and stuff like that. And it's just crazy to me that, we talk about what it takes to, all the time we talk about what it takes to crack the professional ranks. And, those guys what's the difference between, say, a Kevin Kisner and me, guys in his area that have maybe beaten him in the past. And, well, why is he making so much money out there? And it basically, at the end of the day boils down to some sort of mental tick that those guys have figured out that when they walk inside the ropes, they get it done. There's so many guys that have that potential and do it on a local level, a regional level, even a sectional level sometimes at US Open qualifiers and stuff like that. And then they get to, quote unquote, the big leagues, and something just falls short. And a lot of the times it's not, you can't explain it. And that's crazy for me to see that, you just kind of went, nose to the grindstone every year, you knew it was in there. So you kept trying to figure it out.
Absolutely. Yeah. As we get further along the storyline, I'll let you guys kind of control it and drive it where you want, but it'll be interesting as we start talking a little more about the pro version of my story and all that, just how much I think, we all know it. Everyone talks about the mental portion of the game being way more important than the physical. And man, I can really speak to that. And it actually has a lot to do with where I'm currently at in life, my relationship with golf and my goals with it. It really kind of all comes back to the same thing that I was seeing in the early college years, which is that it's all psychological. You really don't stand a chance if you don't believe that you deserve to achieve the level of success that you're striving to achieve. And that really comes down to internal work to be able to prepare yourself to go into these new environments, be around new people, get new judgment and feedback from the outside world, and just not hear it because you've already done the internal work to build up your own walls and your own self-belief and self-confidence. And a lot of what I'm doing right now, I know we haven't got there yet, but I'm sure we will. I'm doing a lot of things that I'm not really playing golf right now, but it's not because I'm done with golf or I don't want to do it. It's just because I think I started to recognize that I haven't built similar to the beginning of college. Just haven't put in enough time to address some of the, self-esteem, self-confidence, self-belief related things that I think are really the only thing that in the beginning prevented me from transferring my local game to my college game and actually getting on a team. And then that same storyline pretty much played out with what I tried to do professionally. And I think it was, again, probably adequate game to do a lot more than I did, but an inability to maintain that self-belief on the road in different environments, different countries. And now as I keep getting older and maturing, I think I'm just getting a little bit quicker with that feedback loop, and recognizing when it's time for me to bring it back home, hone it in, and work on some internal things, build myself up, and then go back and step into the world and try to do that thing you're trying to do as a new man that actually, put some new watermarks in the sand, and kind of up to that level of belief that, no, this is actually, I worked hard enough to become the man that I needed to become, to do this thing that I wanted to do. And this time around, I'm going to go get it because I deserve it. And I'm not just shooting in the dark hoping I can do this thing. So we can get more on that later, but
yeah, no, that's awesome, man. You put it perfectly right there at the end. There's things that you can do, and there's things that you hope you can do. And like you said, shoot in the dark and kind of just hope things happen. And as you got into, I think getting that spot on the college team at Cal Poly, and then having really good success, I think, in your end of your junior year and into your senior year, of just, playing phenomenal golf. It became a thing of like, once you punch through, like you said, that code, that a mental switch happened in which, you just said, well, I can do it. I am doing it, instead of like always wishing it was going to happen. So, touch on that a little bit for us too. What was the rest like once you punched through? How was that experience like? Where did you get to go? What was that team experience like once you finally punched through, since you were living with the guys?
Yeah, it was awesome, man. It was awesome. I played the second half of my junior year, and then as a senior, and then as a fifth year senior. I didn't play in all the tournaments. Never became like the top ranked player on the team or anything. I played some tournaments inside the top 5, some as an indie. Sometimes I sat them out. Part of that was just the nature of having like a 13, 14 man squad. Excuse me. And then part of that was just sort of ebbs and flows of my own game, as most golfers go through. So it wasn't like I just cracked the code, made the team, and then just balled out and won a bunch of tournaments. But I certainly held my own, and never stopped grinding. And I definitely got a lot of enjoyment out of that experience, because it just meant a lot to me, because that was like a 4 or 5 year long goal that eventually happened for me. And at that point in my life was the largest accomplishment, and the number one thing I had worked on. So it was very special to me. And I have a lot of great friends still. A lot of my core friend circle stemmed from my roommates at the time, who were also on the golf team with me. We're still, pretty much my same core friend circle kind of is affiliated with that whole golf team house. And then, I traveled to Florida. Probably the highlight would have been playing Tpc Sawgrass in an invitational out there. What a cool course, and kind of getting a little bit of a wake-up call at the time to having a game that travels. It was one of the main things I identified I needed to work on if I wanted to prepare to turn pro after college, was going to be playing on different grass, realizing like, wow, Florida's got some grainy grass around the greens. I do not know how to chip on this. Like, oh my gosh. So just little things like that was cool to start seeing as a result of traveling through the opportunity of being on a college golf team that would cover things like that, traveling out of state for tournaments. I also, man, dating myself. I'm getting old.
No worries, man. No, it's funny.
I'm with you on that one. There's a lot of times where I just forget. It feels like yesterday, but at the same time, you're like, holy shit, that was 7 years ago. It's just a graduation date.
Yeah,
but I can remember certain things, and felt like it happened the other day, and it didn't, unfortunately.
It's funny, man. Speaking on TPC Sawgrass though, Isaiah was just texting us the other day. We were in a group chat and we were talking about, what 4 courses would you, if you had to play 4 courses for the rest of your life, what 4 courses would be on that list? And Isaiah, like, top of the list was TPC Sawgrass. Not only because the course itself, but just like the amenities, the practice facilities, everything that's like embodied with TPC Sawgrass. And one of the things he said too was just like how pure it was, but how different the grass was in Florida as it was from like some of the Midwest tournaments he played. And then obviously some of the Northeast tournaments that he played. He's like, the reason he picked a couple of the courses was just like to get some different experiences on different, like, bent versus rye versus, whatever kind of grass is out there. And it was cool to hear that perspective. And I'm glad you touched on it too. Cause like, each region and each golf course especially has their own style of grass that presents different challenges to these professional players.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you're absolutely right. Tpc Sawgrass was immaculate. Billy Horschel had something to do at the time with like assistant coaching Florida State or Jacksonville University or something like that. So he was out there kind of putting on some clinics. I remember very vividly he was ripping like 90-mile-an-hour full bore flop shots off of like concrete, thin, bent grass on the practice green areas, like flops over bunkers off of those insanely tight lies with the clubhouse in the background, just one after another, and like talking with the Florida guys through it. And I was like, man, this is another level of comfort and confidence that is cool for all of us to see, because for a lot of us, like, next year, this is kind of what we're going to be trying to do. And it's a wake up call that they're a lot better than us, and we need to work a lot harder to bridge that gap.
There had to be something in that though that like also makes you feel like, hey, it's possible. Like guys are doing this, and you see, Billy Horschel, the guys like Zach Johnson. They're not the biggest dude. They're not like these physical specimens. Like, granted, Billy Horschel is a very like in shape human being, but they're not like these NFL players where they're like 6'8", 6'9", just beasts. They're kind of like, your average size dudes just having phenomenal success with the game.
I agree. Definitely, especially where I'm at now. I have seen so many either personal friends or close connections of friends make it, got not just to like, some level of pro golf, but Korn Ferry and PGA Tour. And after you see that happen enough times, or it's like, somebody that you played against in college from Cal, or like, for instance, Max Homa and Brandon Hagee and Michael Weaver, the whole Cal team. One of our teammates actually, Pace Johnson, transferred from Cal Poly to play for Cal. And so we were always extremely attuned to what was going on. And at the time, Cal was like breaking history records. I think they won, I could be misquoting this, but I want to say at least 9 tournaments in one season, which was like 80% of them. This would have been back I was in college from 09 to 14. So this would have been somewhere around 12, 13, 14. And anyway, the whole top 5, it was Michael Kim, and it was like almost all on the PGA Tour right now from Cal, and a bunch of them were like extremely interconnected with us. We played in a lot of the same tournaments. And it did just little by little, it's similar to like, breaking the 4-minute mile mark, or you can fill in the blank with whichever analogy you want to use. But the concept of just being so intimidated by achieving this thing, and you kind of psych yourself out, and then maybe 1 or 2 people that you perceive as no different than you, not having any, not being superhuman in any way, and they do it. And then all of a sudden, just like an avalanche, your limiting beliefs around the ability to do that can really just be transcended almost overnight, by no change in your own skill set or abilities, but just simply belief. Man, power of the mind is crazy. So
yeah, I mean, just goes back to what we were talking about earlier of just the mentality, structure of the game and how important it is. Some people laughed at Brooks Koepka when he made the comments about like, well, why are you winning so much? And he was like, well, instead of trying to make cuts now, I'm trying to win. And people were like, you can't be serious. Like, that's all you're doing differently. And he's like, yeah, like my mentality, instead of trying to make cuts, is trying to win. And like, I found myself inside the top 5 every time I went out and tried to win instead of making cuts, where I found myself around the cut line. And it's like, people discount, man, the I think ability of our own brains and our own mentality, approach to whatever we're doing, whether it's, like you said, playing golf tournaments or getting up in the morning and working out when you want to stay in bed that extra hour or 2. Like, people discount so much of what we're able to do. And it's crazy. I mean, I think you touched on it perfectly. It's like any milestone, once it's broken, seems to just see the avalanche kind of let loose on it. And I think it all just goes back to some sort of mental structure around what is possible.
100%. Yeah.
That's cool, man. So talk us through, you ended up making the team, you got through that. What were your aspirations after graduation, and how did you approach kind of getting into the professional game?
Yeah. Here's where it gets good. Buckle up. So
man.
After college, I was dead set. I pretty much stayed around that 5th year exclusively as a training year, knowing that I was going to turn pro right after college. I didn't really have much school left at all. I think I had maybe 1/4's worth of classes and senior project or something like that. But it was pretty much an all golf year with the intention of September 2014, which would have been, I graduate June, play one more summer of amateur tournaments, and then in September I'm going to turn pro. That was the plan all year. I was really starting to believe a lot more in myself that I could do what I was talking about doing. And so I spent a lot of that year writing out the schedule, reaching out to guys maybe a step or two ahead of me, talking to different coaches. It was a combo of training skills and mindset and physical, gym type work. And then also the plan, where are you going to play, try to learn about Canadian tour. And at the time, the Latin tour didn't exist, but, where exactly are you going to play? And so when I did graduate, I had a really hot summer, June, July, August. It was definitely the best golf I had ever played. And I think it was just sort of this wave of momentum and excitement about being out of college. And I had, foregone all of the other things that would have deviated my path, like getting a job or, taking an internship or studying abroad or anything like that. It was just all eggs in the basket of playing pro golf. And then didn't quite go as planned. About a week before that very first pro debut was going to happen, I kind of woke up with a weird pain in my collarbone that I had never felt before. And I just assumed it was like a kinked neck from sleeping weird. Practiced on it for maybe 1 or 2 days, made it a lot worse. And then that was pretty much it. That was the beginning of almost 2 full years of not playing any golf or working out. It was sort of a little bit of an inexplicable issue with a joint called the sternoclavicular joint. It was degenerative on me, and it was a little hard to explain exactly why and pinpoint it to like, you fell snowboarding in 2012 at Whistler and like you shouldn't have done that. So now you're going to have to pay the price. It was like, nah.
It wasn't like a distinctive break where it like actually happened.
Exactly. It would have been much better the way doctors explained if that had happened. Like we wish you would have just broke your collarbone, getting hit playing football when you were 11, because then we could at least we have protocol for how to, rehab that. But it was basically a degenerative joint. After 3 or 4 months of, working with different soft tissue workers, getting a cortisone shot. I would have been much better at telling this story a couple of years. I feel like for a couple of years, it's like all I did, especially when I was injured. It was like I wasn't even playing golf. So I spent a decent amount of time on some other podcasts and stuff, and I was very succinct with how I told it. But now it's been a couple of years since I really thought about it. So I might be a little bit more spacey about my depiction of it. But long story short, we wound up going the stem cell PRP route, which is a regenerative type of therapy, because the joint itself was loose. And every time that I swung as a right-handed golfer and opened up for my follow through, there was a lot of popping and clicking and kind of like having rocks in your shoe. It was basically loose cartilage and bone, a little bit of bone sort of ripped off the collarbone that was just kind of crackling around in the joint. And so I just basically had to rest and not work out. And the stem cells and PRP, stem cells basically, if anyone is not familiar with them, at the time they were kind of emerging and it was still called experimental medicine. I know it's a bit more mainstream now, but they take bone marrow out of your lower back. They spin it up in a centrifuge to isolate, bone marrow and red blood cells, and then they inject that back into an injured area to try to help regrow cartilage and tissue and just kind of strengthen and stabilize. And it is a way of avoiding reconstructive surgery, which would have normally been what they would do for a joint like that was just really unstable, and they kind of deemed it like a repetitive stress injury, whether that be from a lifetime of golf or I was very into working out, just like obsessed in high school and college with just jacking weight in the gym. Kind of had this like mentality. I even remember writing a lot of my college papers about this, just feeling like golf didn't have a tremendous amount of respect as a sport. And I certainly felt like that was a misnomer. And I knew a lot of guys, myself included, that were definitely well-rounded athletes that could just as easily play basketball or or baseball, and I hated that. Guys were like, yeah, I think golf is more of a hobby. Like,
I want to touch on that for a second too, and I'm glad you brought that up, because when I stepped onto campus, our golf team was very new. Strength and conditioning coaches had no clue we even had a golf team the first time we approached them. And from my perspective, growing up in the game and just seeing the guys that were on tour at the time in 2012 and thriving, it was the Rorys, it was the DJs, it was the guys who were just physical specimens out there. And the first time we touched upon, hey, we want to lift, we want to work out as a golf team, that we got laughed at from our strength and conditioning coaches. They were like, wait, what do you guys need to lift for? Like, what are you talking about? You're golfers, you're not athletes. And like, I'll always remember that first conversation, because we ended up just having to go do our own thing. But I love you touch on that, because I think especially during that time in like when you were in school in like 2009 plus, I think it was a big change in the way golf was looked at, because it's still at that time, it wasn't the athletic sport that it is really known as today.
Absolutely. Yeah. 100%. And,
I mean, look at Rory when he came on the scene. He was just, he was just this very talented golfer, and just changed his whole lifestyle. Now he's just straight up ripped and just, puts I mean, you saw it, like even like the old greats were questioning, why is this guy bench pressing? Why is this guy deadlifting? And like you look at the Brookses and you look at the DJs and you look at all those guys who put all their efforts and they're putting like 80% of the gym and like 20% of actual practice. And it just shows that like, these guys are at the top of the list for a reason. I mean, what are they doing? It's off the course. That's a lot of the focus, and it shows. I mean, there's so many training aids out there that can only do so much, and you need to get your body in shape, and you need to focus on the mobility and the core aspects of the game. And when you put yourself in the gym and you focus on the weightlifting and all of those aspects of that, you're going to see a huge improvement when you step back on the course.
100%. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I agree. And the main reason I even brought it up was just to say that at the time I was identifying heavily as one of the guys trying to bridge that gap and make people shift their perception of golfers. And because that was always the reaction I got, was like, what sport do you play here at Cal Poly? Don't look like a golfer, look more like baseball or basketball. And I loved that. That got me juiced up. And that could have partially been, I guess, what the doctors and I all pointed to as maybe why I had a little bit of that issue. I was super into benching and shoulder press and stuff like that. Who really knows? Basically, the surgical option was really risky. Your aorta and all your major arteries run down your throat in extremely close quarters to that sternoclavicular joint, which is on the inside of your collarbone. And it was like this super rare thing. No doctors were familiar with doing that operation. They all were like, we definitely would want a heart surgeon to scrub in, because there's a decent chance that we would accidentally nick something, and that could easily result in death if we weren't like speedy with patching it up. And so we consulted with like 5 or 6 top doctors. I was so lucky to have an insanely supportive family, because it was a really weird time. It's interesting for me to kind of get my brain back into it, because for a while it was just this sort of like PTSD thing that at first I think I leaned on it a bit too much as a crutch, and just kept repeating that story to myself again and again about, man, you just had this crazy thing happen, and why me? And then eventually I was like, you got to stop that shit, man. Like, I don't ever want to hear you say the word sternoclavicular joint ever again for the rest of your life.
Well, first of all, I tried to say that to Dante before we got on the show, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to ever say that. So I'm glad you said it, because I butchered it the first time I tried to say it. So props to you for saying it over and over again.
Yeah. But it's all good now. It's all way in the past. But yeah, I guess it was a challenging time where I didn't know if the doctors were saying, we don't think that you will really ever get a chance at playing golf. We think that even if we can give you some stability back in the joint, we're definitely not going to do surgery, because it's not life or death for you to have this done, and it could be very risky if you do it, and there's no one who's like an expert at it. So that's out. And then with this more experimental medicine, it's very slow. I did it for like an entire year. It was very painful. ton of low back drilling. It was insanely expensive, not covered by insurance. At the time, I was working as a caterer. That was the job that I had picked coming out of college that I was going to do as sort of a side job while I tried to support some of the golf I was playing and traveling. And the doctor, it got way beyond. It took probably 6 months to line up with a good match of a doctor. I mean, we escalated as high as you possibly could if your name wasn't like Tiger Woods. And, found a great doctor, and to this day, we're in touch. I'm in his book as one of the success stories. I credit him with essentially giving me a chance at life that was going to be taken from me if he didn't intervene and help. And it became way more than like, hey, you know, I'm a patient, this is the doctor, and he's going to come in and drill some bone marrow out of my back and then shoot it 400 times into my neck. Like, it became this mental, psychological issue because I think pretty much everyone that began working with me and diving deeper into it started to feel like, man, this is just so inexplicable. We feel like some of it is a manifestation of stress and the fact that like you were so overhyped about taking this leap in your life and not knowing if you could do it that you almost just like created this out of thin air as like you're so stressed and you're so unsure if you can do it that like this is an easier out because now it's like a reason that you can't do it. It was just it was crazy to think about and look back on, but our work together started to kind of escalate almost more into that spiritual realm of like, hey, dude, you can do this. Like, you can heal yourself if you say you can heal yourself. And I actually really resonate with that type of thinking. I'm not at all like afraid of the woo-woo or spiritual or Zen type stuff. I was lucky enough to have my dad kind of expose me from a young age just to the power of the mind. And I can even remember at like age 10, you know, trying to psych myself out of being sick by just like repeated affirmations for like 5 hours. You know, it's like my dad told me, you know, you're only sick or hurt or whatever if you tell yourself you are. And I like took that to heart. And I remember being proud as hell one time and going back to him and being like, Dad, I think I just talked myself out of being sick. Like I was feeling terrible, and I just sat in the room and I visualized myself being healthy, and I visualized myself being back out playing with my friends, and I just kept saying I'm not sick. And I'm telling you, man, like I feel better. And I think just little things like that really shaped my brain chemistry and the way I approached pretty much everything throughout my life, especially with athletics. And so that type of background and exposure from a young age, which I think was kind of unique, maybe especially then, maybe it's becoming a little more mainstream now, but I just felt lucky to have that upbringing. And I think it was something I was applying to that situation between 14 and 16 when I was dealing with the SC joint and all that. And I think ultimately, you know, we found great medicine. Stem cells and PRP are definitely the real deal. That doctor wound up asking me to quit my job because it did involve a lot of carrying heavy bags and food. And he's like, yeah, I know you're not golfing, I know you're not working out, but I'm telling you, if you're not literally just like laying on a bed 24/7, I have a feeling you're still delaying this process, and we're all putting so much on the line to try to help you get back. Like, it's not worth it for any of us. If you don't take it serious, I need you to quit that job, or I'm going to stop doing the procedure on you. And if you do, I'm going to help you out with it. And so it was a whole thing, man, but eventually it worked out. And
I mean, that's so cool. And you look back on it now, and you know, it's tough to say when you're in that scenario that, yes, this is setting me up for something better down the road. But, you know, touch on that, because I think it did, you know, looking back and saying, well, now that you had the time, you said you were stuck in bed almost all day, you know, you had very minimal, you know, kind of movement during that time. Talk us through maybe what, you know, you got into that led you to where you are today via, you know, looking further into business, looking further into, you know, getting yourself larger on social media presence. Like, how did that kind of help you step into the role that you're currently, you know, chasing today?
Totally. Yeah, I guess I just made up my mind. Once it became pretty clear that it was an uncertain future, there was no timeline like there would have been for a broken bone. Like, hey, you'll be back in 9 months, so plan accordingly. It was just kind of like, hopefully it works out. We have no idea, so prepare yourself for anything. And one of those things being that you never really get to play golf again. So I definitely did everything I could to visualize, and I continued watching PGA Tour. I sat there with the club in my hand when I watched TV. Just got pretty deep into studying Olympic athletes like Michael Phelps. I had always looked up to him, and the crazy 7 gold medal Olympics that he had. That was a huge inspiration to me. Tiger '08 US Open was just like another one of those moments that just brought me to tears, showing what is possible with like raw emotion and passion and work ethic, and just reliving things like that that got that spark and enthusiasm and passion in me fired up. And so a lot of time on those type of things. Obviously surrounded by love and laughter with my parents, and good friends, just keeping it as light and positive as possible. And then also, applying myself to this new lane, which you just mentioned, so this would have been September 2014 until kind of the early months of 2016 was my downtime. And that was when I started really learning about social media. I'm definitely from the generation that didn't grow up with a cell phone and, Facebook or Instagram. I didn't even have Instagram until I think after college. So I just kind of started around that time, and I started realizing, wow, man, like this stuff's pretty powerful. I was spending a lot of time posting pictures of golf and kind of networking and collabing. And at the time, actually, similar to exactly what we're doing here 5 years later, I remember reaching out and connecting with a guy named Ryan Walker, who now has a golf and entrepreneurship podcast. It's called G&E. Does pretty good on Instagram, and he's got his own blog and podcast. And we kind of talked a little about maybe launching a few things like that ourselves. And my brain started going down the rabbit hole of what people like Gary Vee talk about, and the power of the internet and the ability to build a personal brand, and that sort of being the ultimate protection to be yourself. And you can never be fired from anything. You can never be canceled. If you build a personal brand and people love you for you and care about the things that you share with the world, like you're good. You're going to be able to kind of live life on your terms, no matter the platform shifts that we go through. And that doesn't mean it's easy to do that, but I just started thinking at that time how valuable that stuff was and how cool of an opportunity it was, since I wasn't playing golf, working out every day, to start thinking that way and building those things. So I did as much as I could at the time and saw enough traction that it's kind of always been an interest of me. And so even when I did get healthy, began playing pro golf in early 2016, I never stopped posting. I never stopped doing Instagram or stopped thinking about YouTube or stopped listening to podcasts and trying to learn more and more about new platforms. And now it's TikTok, and just I've always been into it. And I'm really glad I started then, because it's definitely not like you can read like a book about it and next thing you know, like you're on the road to monetizing social media. Like, it's definitely a challenging long game, and I'm not speaking to dummies. I know you guys know exactly how that goes. So it was cool. It was honestly, it was a great opportunity to get a lot tougher mentally. And what happened when I got healthy and started playing again was very interesting and cool. And I point to it again as just sort of the power of attitude, perspective, the mind in general. I was playing amazing golf, and there was no reason I should be playing good golf because I hadn't touched a club in almost 2 years. But I think my second tournament, like a week after, I practiced for maybe like 3 weeks or something, and then just was like, all right, let's do it. I'm just gonna sign up for the PGA Tour pre-qualifier for the waste management. I think that was my second tournament. We fired 67 and missed out on the Monday by like 2 shots at some course in Arizona. My fifth tournament was a win. I won a pro tournament over JJ Spawn was in the field. He was right behind me, and he's on the PGA Tour now, but it was just like a local pro event in California, Southern California. And I just had this insane gratitude and appreciation for just how crazy that road was, of not knowing if I'd ever really even get a chance to do the only thing I ever said I wanted to do with my life. Like the massive gratitude I had for the insane support system of people that kept me up when I kind of was in some dark places and struggling. It was just so overwhelming that it really transcended all of the logical things at play, which is like, well, you're physically out of shape, you haven't been practicing, like you really weren't even a prospect to turn pro before this even happened. You had no college wins. There's nothing on your track record that says, man, this kid's going to do great as a pro. Like everything really says, you save your money, kid, get a job. But I just was so excited that it was just completely Xing out all of the logical stuff. And I thought that was really cool. And I talk about that a lot, and I use that all the time to continue trying to sort of surge myself forward in areas where things may be stacked against me. But I remember, like, dude, it's really all up to you. You can do or not do whatever you convince yourself, and it all revolves around just how much enthusiasm and passion can you bring to the table every day. How much can you continue believing in yourself, because you'll either succeed or fail, more or less, just based on that.
Yeah, I think that's so huge, and like I think it boils down to as well just your passion for being an athlete and working out constantly. I think the drive to be a better physically, it kind of shows itself when you look at the way you talked about having the success early, but still wanting more. It's like you can. There's a lot of people that can maybe even say, I had success early and I peaked. People love to use that term, peaked. Like I peaked here, I peaked there. And it's like, if you have the right success mentality, and I think this is what separates a lot of, guys chasing it, whether it's any professional ranks to guys that actually make it, they never allow themselves to peak. They don't look at like you said, when you won that local pro event, that could be in a lot of people's eyes, like, all right, like I did it, like I won, like, I peaked and there it is. And then, a lot of people end up being satisfied with that or kind of riding that high for much longer than they need to. So I think there's a lot to be said, and it's cool to see you kind of portray that mentality every day. I see it on Instagram. You're constantly working out, you're constantly playing, and it's like, you're not happy with just a win. You want more wins. You want, you want professional wins. You want Monday qualifier wins. You want to be on the PGA Tour, and that's what's really cool, and it's awesome to see. And I think it just time and time again you've been able to show it, throughout your life, and it's just been incredible from our side of things to watch it all kind of happen. And in the little time that we've been following you, and it's awesome to see that comes from a very long, kind of repeated process of just constantly wanting more.
It's awesome, man. Yeah, thank you. It does. Yeah, it's just ingrained habits and patterns from a long time, a lot of trial and error, and it definitely, I do not have it figured out. I'm not on autopilot now. It's continued to be an up and down, left and right, more injuries, a little bit more success, a little bit more failures. Like, it's never ever flattened out. But I think that's kind of just the process of life. It's very funny you guys have the name Enjoy the Walk for your podcast and brand, because that's actually, enjoy the journey is kind of my favorite motto. Obviously, I didn't invent that. It's not my trademark or anything, but that's just sort of the one all-encompassing phrase that applies to life and golf for me. Is just like, man, there is no like, I'll be happy when, or I'm gonna figure it out at this point, or as soon as I achieve this thing, like life will work out. Like, that is just a recipe for constant frustration and unhappiness, at least in my experience. And kind of the quicker you realize that, like, even the people that we look to, like the Gary V's and the people that seem sort of like the examples of ultimate success, ultimate fulfillment, happiness, having it figured out, like, they don't. No one ever does. Like, that's not the point. The point is not to master the system and figure out all the unlocks. The point is to be okay with the uncertainty and the ebbs and flows. Let the negatives make you appreciate the high times that much more, and just kind of say yes to all of it, accept it all. I mean, I really do think that, yeah, maybe I'm just speaking like life in general isms right now, and I don't know if everyone views golf that same way, but I see like almost no barrier between good life mentality and good golf mentality. And I think that's sort of the phase I'm in right now, is because it's hard when you're like deep in the golf industry and game, especially pursuing it collegiately or professionally. It is hard to go against the grain of the culture of the sport. And it might be changing right now. People might be waking up a little bit more, but I think it's a very traditional game, and there's a lot of golf isms and things that you hear guys say that if you buy too much into it, and I think it's like where a lot of my belief and my struggle going from high school to college and not thinking I was good enough, I think a lot of it comes from you just kind of soak up what the guys around you are saying and doing. And I feel like there is a better way to get peak performance on a golf course, and it actually starts with kind of just chasing peak performance in life through the, you know, I don't know why I keep saying Gary Vee so much. Clearly, he's been a very impactful figure in my life. But I guess, you know, the last couple years especially, and then now more than ever during quarantine, I am like full speed down the, you know, personal growth path, and obviously health and wellness is a part of that. But I sort of got a bigger mission, which right now is taking the form of, you know, I spend all my time on social media. I'm like full time trying to grow a couple different avenues of social media. And it's not just because I have nothing better to do or I really want to, like, you know, hit a certain amount of followers. It's because I feel like, I mean, that's basically earning your microphone in today's day and age. Growing a brand, making some noise online is probably the quickest way, without a huge sum of money at your disposition. It's the quickest way to earn a microphone to say something to a particular audience or niche. And I'm not like the ultimate proof that what I'm talking about works, but I think I'm in the process of writing the book, of taking a little more of maybe you could call it like a holistic approach to improving at golf. It really just stems from trying to improve at life and be a little bit more self-aware, be a little bit more grateful, spend a little bit more time practicing things like delayed gratification when it comes to improving your belief system around things, approaching it from the standpoint of, I'm a big believer in like Stoic philosophy and people who preach like habits and routines, and saying that, like, you know, it's not enough to simply visualize yourself as a golfer who shoots in the 60s and then just magically like you become, I mean, that's a good starting point, but then level 2.0 of that is, okay, deconstruct the habits of somebody who shoots in the 60s. What are they doing? What are they eating? How do they practice? What time do they go to bed and wake up? What books are they reading? What type of content are they consuming? Do they go home and watch, you know, reality TV? Or do they go home and study, you know, George Gankus golfswings.com? Like, what are these people doing? Figure it out, and then start doing that yourself. And we judge others the same way we judge ourselves. I really believe this is true. It's been true in my experience. This is not something uniquely from my voice. I'm regurgitating other smart people that came before me, but we judge ourselves the same way we judge others, where, you know, if Joe is over here and has 72 drinks every night, I'm going to judge Joe as an alcoholic. And then subconsciously, if I have 72 drinks every night, I'm going to judge myself as an alcoholic. And the flip side of that would be we judge Gary Vee as extremely hardworking and motivational because he does all these things. Therefore, if I do all these things Gary Vee does, I will start to judge myself as a motivational person, you know, a hard worker, very successful and accomplished, or very fulfilled in my relationship, whatever the thing is you're trying to chase. And so I just think that these are not necessarily golf specific concepts. They're more like self-improvement, personal growth. Some of them come from mindfulness. Some of them come from Stoic philosophy. They're kind of just all over the place, the things that have sparked my interest. But as I've been growing and developing through golf and fitness and health the last 5 or 6 years, I've been fortunate enough to make that, you know, primarily what I'm focused on. Whereas most people, they're primarily focused on a more full-time job, and they maybe have a little bit of spare time to do it. But I've had the advantage of spending most of my time on that. And I think it's gotten me to this place where I believe really strongly that most of us are just wildly underperforming and in our own dome when it comes to getting the most out of ourselves as golfers. And I'm more than anything speaking to myself. And I think the unlock cheat code to that is like what quarantine has given us, which is a moment to step back, journal, reflect, read, get to know yourself better, change the habits that don't support your goals, replace them with better habits, sort of rework your environment and the people in your environment. Like, there's just all these things that I think are not super talked about yet in the golf world. And I would love to sort of bring light to that through building brand on social media, getting to the point where people will actually listen to what you have to say. And then over time, I would like it to be some really impactful, powerful things that help the golf community, the health community, people in general. Like I have really high hopes for what is possible through this whole internet thing.
I think, like you said, and you touched on it perfectly. I think the temperature's starting to change in golf, and I think it's obviously a long way to go in getting it to a point where I think those golf isms, like you said, are kind of maybe a thing of the past, because there is a lot of those things, and a different podcast, a different day, we can get into all those. But I think it does hold some people back and feeling like they need to fit into a certain a certain niche that maybe they themselves don't truly, personality wise, or however they see themselves, don't fit into, but feel like they have to maybe force themselves into that side of things. And I think a perfect name you brought up to kind of breaking that barrier and just what golf was usually all about at the professional level is George Gankis. And I know you take some lessons with him have taken some lessons with him in the past. And before we wrap up, I just want you to touch on that a little bit. Like, what is the experience like with out there with Gankis, and how has it differed from any of the other, lessons or any kind of just teaching professionals you've encountered in the past?
Oh yeah, it's awesome. He was a friend before being my coach, and then early 2018 started working with him full time as a coach. And it's quite the experience, man. He's just an awesome representation of being his authentic self. Super genuine guy, nicest guy on the face of the earth. You couldn't say a bad thing about him if you tried, and if you do, it's just because you don't have all the information to judge from, and that just comes with the territory of being a big player on the internet. You're going to catch love and hate, no matter what you say and do. So he's an awesome guy, genuine as hell, tries harder than anyone I know to help people get better, which at the level he is at is actually mind-blowing to me. I feel myself at this like minuscule level of starting to help a couple people in fitness and golf and answering some DMs and building a couple programs. I find myself getting stressed and tired and a little fatigued from responding, and you're giving a lot. And this dude for 20 years plus sits on the mat all day, every day, and he's never off. Like you would think that he would have like some good lessons and some bad lessons, and some times where he's like bringing the heat, and some times where he's like, honestly, I don't care right now. Like do whatever you want, dude. Like, take shallow. Like I'm tired. But he just doesn't, and that's why he is who he is. That's where that reputation built from, is just being a consistently good dude, pouring his heart out to his students. No matter, he doesn't need to do that anymore, right? Like he could easily be like, all right, Westlake, thanks for the memories, like deuces, I'm gonna go be on tour every single week. But I know, because of being friends and not just taking lessons from him, I know that his motivation is deeply intrinsic to just actually help people. All of the successful models in golf or any arena of life, I think, get there. The more people you help, the more money you make, the better your life is. Like, it really is that simple. And most of us just can't be that selfless to where our motivation for things we do is like, wow, it just feels really fulfilling and awesome to like help this person get better. That makes me feel good. That's a good use of my time. Like most of us just can't do that, and it's why most of us just aspire to that level of success and fulfillment and don't quite get it. So I'm not even talking about golf at all. I'm just talking about like being a good dude type stuff.
But I think that's what makes it so different, because you look at some guys in the past who maybe have become that kind of money hungry. Yeah, I'll go out and tour and kind of screw the rest of my affiliates that I've built up who I am today for, just to chase the money, chase the tour, chase the fame. And it's so cool, man. Just to his online presence is hilarious. Some of the relationships he's ended up to build with Matt Wolf and a couple other guys just out there in the Cali area. It's just so cool, man, because you can tell it's authentic. It just, like you said, it's just who he is. And that's just so cool to have that kind of guy, almost get his due diligence and get what's deserved, because he is such an innovator of the game. There's no one else teaching the swing like he does. And, it's epic to see someone who does it the way he does, with his style and his flair and just the mechanics he teaches, see the success that he's being able to have.
100%. And honestly, maybe even more impressive than his ability to understand the golf swing is I probably what he's helped me with more than anything is like bravado, confidence, self-belief. Like I've had lessons with him where I'm like, dude, I don't want to hit balls today. I actually just want to go talk. Like same parameters of the lesson, same everything, but I just want to talk, record the conversation. I'm going to take notes on it because I don't think what I'm missing right now is like a little bit more pure striking. I think it's in my dome, and I know that you know more about that than anybody else because you've seen it firsthand and coached it firsthand, and he's so helpful with that. It's really, and this is, I guess, where like judgment comes in, and a lot of the players in our circle, a lot can be perceived as like overly arrogant or sure of themselves, and it's not that at all. It's just the product of like hard work, and it's a little bit coached to be, at least he's not saying to not be yourself. Like if it's not you to like, be loud and boisterous, he's not saying to be that way. He just wants, similar to like what I touched on earlier, like put in the work to really have that ultimate belief in yourself. Like the main thing that he's told me is basically just that he's like, the reason Matt Wolf is who he is right now is because he hit like 600 to 1,000 balls every single day throughout his teenage years. That's where his sureness in himself and his confidence and his ability to still perform at the same level, even when he's out there with the biggest names in the world and he's such a youngster, it was just built on the backbone of hard work. And he's like, that's all it is. Like if you want that level of success, then your actions have to map to your words. And clearly I haven't fully embodied that, or else I would have done more with the game than I've done. But I think his advice is just spot on, and he just wants to help people. So he deserves all the success that he has.
Yeah, one of the best tips that I've heard from him that I've tried to take into my game, from some of the snippets I've seen from Ganks and what he embodies and just pushes towards his players, is to just play without fear. A lot of the guys who go out there that have so much potential they just have fear when they're out on the course, like fear they're going to put in the woods, or fear they're going to shoot this score, or fear that they're going to, I don't know, for just an like fear they're going to shank it, or fear they're going to, 4-putt, 3-putt, or just have like these very high negative thoughts going throughout their round. He goes, if you can take fear out of the equation, you're dangerous when you step on the course, especially at the high professional level. So that's one of the best things I've taken from him, and I'm trying to instill that into my game. I'm trusting the process on that one. So it's, but yeah, it's just awesome to see there.
Yeah, I love it. I agree.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, I really appreciate you. And, I'm sure we all do, is just taking the time out for us and joining us this evening. It's been awesome to hear your story and your path in the game. One thing we've always, I think, kind of, reflected back on during our time of doing these podcasts is just how unique everybody's story is. And it's, no different in how you've approached the game, how you've, had to step away and come back to it, and it's awesome that we've been able to have you on, and we really appreciate you taking the time. It's been a real pleasure. Where can people find you to maybe follow along on what you got going on today? You touched on TikTok a little bit. You touched on how you're growing the the brand. Where can people follow along?
Sure. Yeah. So it's crazy, but right now I'm like way more active on TikTok than anything else, because it's just this once in a lifetime opportunity where a platform is just giving the most massive reach ever. So I'm not really using it for golf. There's future plans of that. Right now I'm just milking it for what it's worth to grow and have more opportunities in the future. But find me on TikTok _Alex Romo. You can find me on Instagram at Alex Romo Golf, YouTube at Alex Romo Golf. Those are always going to be the two places where I try to put out the most thoughtful, valuable content. I have quite a few things in the works right now. My own podcast, my own kind of ebook about some of my experiences with golf, and bringing on, similar to what you guys are doing here, I'd like to bring on a number of my own buddies in the pro golf space, coaches, mini tour directors, college coaches, try to add a lot of value into the maybe high school, college, young semi-pro golf community, and share some of that. So that's all that type of stuff is always going to be going out either on my YouTube or Instagram, just digital digital products, podcasts, YouTube videos, things like that. So Alex Romo Golf would be the one-stop shop on any platform you're looking at to try to find that. I have a website. It's kind of outdated. That's alexromogolf.com, but lots more coming, and all the updates will be on my Instagram and YouTube.
Well, hey man, excited to see it. I think one thing we found out is, there's always room in the market for more, and each person seems to find a way to bring their own unique content, and it seems like you're going to be able to do that through the passion you have in the game and your experiences that have led you to this point. So, as always, man, thanks again for joining us. Truly a pleasure. And hopefully, you can get out there and enjoy the walk and play some golf here in the next week or two.
Love it. Thank you, guys. That was a blast. I had a good time. I appreciate it, Dalton and Dante.
Absolutely, man. Cheers, and best of luck with your pursuits in the game.
Thank you, guys. Cheers.
Yes, sir.
That's the stuff. One shot at a time.